Now, let's go talk to Mary Wilson. She's got a wonderful story that I want you guys to hear about. Mary, welcome to the Young Turks Network and Rebel Headquarters in particular. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you, sister. So here's a fun story. You're running in Texas 21st District. Texas has a system where there's runoffs if no one gets 50%. Mary, you got no chance. There's a guy in the race, Joseph Kopser, who's raised nearly $800,000. How much did you raise, Mary?
Well, I had $40,000. 30,000 of that was my own money.
Okay, all right. So
yeah,
I can do the math. You were outraised 20 to 1, and
yes.
And then there was Derek Crow, who's a really good guy, who's a deeply progressive. Yes. He was a Justice Democrat, and so it was a fascinating race. And all of a sudden, you whooped them both. And came in number one.
Well, let me start. Yeah, let me just start off by saying, over the course of the year of campaigning, Derek and I got to be friends. It wasn't just that we were running. There became a true admiration, mutual admiration, and I think genuine affection for one another. And I absolutely adore Derek and appreciate everything he's done and the messages that he was getting out on the campaign as well. And how he immediately turned around the night of the election and the next morning to tell people to get behind me, that the progressive values had won and that I was the candidate to support.
You know, the Democratic establishment often talks about unity, but it's fake unity. They just want you to do whatever they tell you to do. Yeah. This is real unity. So
yeah.
When you have two decent people involved in a democracy, and you guys run and you wind up winning, Mary, bless your heart for that. And then Derek turns around and immediately asks all of his volunteers and staffers to come to your side. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And one of the first things that I did actually was hire his field director to be my new campaign manager, because I recognized that Derek had the best field game out of the entire campaign. So I hope I showed a little insight and even respect to say, you know what, you did this well, and I'm going to bring that part to this next phase of the campaign and bring some of those people together as part of my team and my staff.
So Mary, are you now just Democrat?
Yes, I am.
That's awesome.
Yes, I am.
That's great. And yes. So, look, I think that speaks well both of the organization for realizing she's a wonderful candidate. So let's unify in all the great ways, the right ways. And I think it speaks really well of you that they had a candidate running against you, and now you've joined up nonetheless and getting their support. So it's a wonderful story. But I think the most interesting part of the story is how you did it, and that part I don't know. Okay, and so again, let me set the context for everybody. So
sure,
you had more people in the race than just you three, but you three were the top vote getters. But the top two advanced the runoff. Now you didn't get 50%, so you're in the runoff. You're in the runoff with the guy with all the money, right? And so we're going to find out, who's going to win that primary when the runoff happens. So, but now you got Derek's crew behind you. You got the Just Democrats behind you, and so that's how the rest of this race is going to unfold. And nothing is for certain yet. And I want to save the conversation about the guy with the money to the end. But now, tell me, with that little resources, without almost any of the media covering you, without any infrastructure, how did you come in number one in the initial vote?
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I'll admit, coming in first was a little bit unexpected, to be fair and to be honest. But throughout the district, I had people telling me, "Mary, you've got a lot of support out here. You're going to make this runoff." Now, I didn't have any way to quantify that exactly, because what does that mean when people just tell you in passing that you're doing well? You hope that that's true, but you can't, put numbers to it. So the reason I think that I did as well as I did are a couple of things. I think people are looking for different types of candidates. And for instance, the races in Virginia, we're just, your real estate agent or I don't know, other teachers around the country have come out and said, I want to run for office. And my background is in education and now as a minister. And I looked around and thought, I've done a lot of things that I'm very proud of in my life. And I've been an activist and I've marched and I've protested, I've lobbied and testified, all those kinds of things. And I kept thinking, there's got to be more. What else can I do? And so I decided to run for office. And I think we are in an era now where we want people who are working class type people who are your basic caring type of people to be in politics. And I think we want people in elected offices that show that they care about the population and not just about the money. Making money is, man, it's like the god of our country in so many ways, and in politics for sure. And I've never realized how much so until I became a candidate.
Yeah, so I definitely get that part. 16 years as a pastor, 20 years as a math teacher and professor. And people are excited by real human beings running for office to represent us.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should have been all along until the money corrupted everything.
Right.
But let's talk about the mechanics just a little bit more.
Sure.
So how did you get volunteers? How many volunteers did you get? What did you have them do? What did you do with the 40,000 that you had?
Right. So, that's a really interesting question. Volunteers in the dozens, and I had them target particular precincts in Austin, San Antonio for flyers, door hangers, and door knocking, that sort of thing. That's kind of standard fare. I spent an interesting amount of money in San Antonio on signage and flooded the district in San Antonio with name recognition, because a couple of the candidates in our race did some polls at the end of the year, at the end of December or 1st of January. And those polls indicated at the very least that we needed name recognition. And San Antonio, like Austin, is a big city and there's a lot of precincts and a lot of different neighborhoods. It's like, how do you get name recognition when there's so much space to cover? And so I spent basically $10,000 to put up nearly 500 signs in San Antonio in order to get name recognition. And then I followed that up by some of the door knocking and meeting people in, local establishments and introducing myself. And then when I would hear, I saw your sign. Oh, yes, you're Mary. Then I knew that was working to an extent. I did not win Barra County, where San Antonio is. I did come in second there, but I think it demonstrated that particular tactic in that particular area was very helpful. In Austin, where all four candidates live, I already had some name recognition from my activism and lobbying work that I had done. So I just tried to continue to capitalize on that in the corners where people knew me and made sure that they knew I was running for office and what my positions were that I think they were already familiar with from having known me. And then in the Hill Country, I just made sure I went to every possible event. I've been to San Marcos. Well, San Marcos is just down the highway, but I went to the San Marcos Pride Parade, and I happened to be the only candidate in the race that went to the San Marcos Pride Parade. And of course, I went to the Austin Pride Parade. I've even been to the Kerrville Rotary Club and to any place where I thought I could talk to people. Now, having said that, I think the other candidates did that as much as they possibly could as well. But that is where I focus my efforts, knowing that with a limited amount of money and limited resources because of that, I had to show up at every possible place. And I also recognize that there is nothing better for potential voters than to actually talk to the candidate, in this case herself. And so I just tried to make myself as available and accessible as I possibly could.
And so, if you'll excuse me, just two more
Sure.
questions about the mechanics, and then I want to get to your positions too in the limited time that we have. But so when you say signs, do you mean house signs, like the lawn signs? And
Some. I mean, like 4x8 and 4x4 signs spread out through highways and roads and neighborhoods throughout the district, where if somebody left their home to go to the grocery store, they saw one of my signs so that they knew my name.
okay, and then did you do any ads? So I imagine with that budget you couldn't do TV, but did you do digital ads?
Very, very limited, but I did do some Facebook boost, but not any beyond that. Fortunately, we do have more money already than what I did, and we've already been doing some digital ads. In fact, my spouse came up to me the other day and showed me where she'd been playing a game on her phone. I don't know, solitaire or something, and one of my digital ads came up. So that was very exciting to see that. Okay, we've now been able to add that to our arsenal of getting my name out there and advertising our campaign.
Yeah, well, I want to help in that regard. So I love the link that you guys have now, justicedemocrats.com/Mighty Mary to donate to Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so elect
Thank
Mary.
you.
Yeah, electmarywilson.com is the website, and electmarywilson.com/volunteer. Of course, volunteers make a huge difference, and then justdemocrats.com/Mighty Mary.
Volunteers are what make it happen, and I'm very glad that I am able to pay some staff members now in ways that I couldn't prior to the primary, but. None of this works without volunteers. They are the lifeblood of any campaign.
Yep, and so those links are, of course, down below in the description box on YouTube and in the comment section on Facebook. Easy to click, just go check it out and participate in any way you can. So now, real quick, back to Mr. Moneybags. So what is his governing philosophy? What's his thesis for why he could win in what now is a Republican district? Lamar Smith is retiring, but it's only R+10, which now in Pennsylvania, we just had one flip when it was R+19, right? So,
yeah.
And what is your philosophy compared to his?
Well, I think, honestly, it has a lot to do with money. It seems like his main argument for winning in November is that he has more money and therefore will be able to win the election. The problem with that in Texas in particular is Republicans always outraise Democrats. Beto may be showing some signs of changing that with his very grassroots campaigning and fundraising. But the history has been that Democrats are outraised by Republicans 7-1 or 9-1. And my argument then is, well, we need a candidate that can prove and has proven that she can win while being outspent, and that has a message that gets voters out to the polls. Because we've been looking at some of the precinct turnout in areas where I did well, and there is, I think, an argument to be made that my messaging brought some new voters to the polls. And that we're in a different time now where establishment money is not going to be what wins an election. That we need a message, and a progressive message, of one that shows that we care about people's health care, the Medicare for All platform, where we care about how people are able to send their children to school, and not just our public schools K through 12, but what are we doing with college and college debt, and how in the world can graduates become part of our economic system, for lack of a better phrase, if they are saddled with this enormous debt now that's coming out of colleges. So I think we're ready for a different message, a different type of candidate. I think we're ready for somebody, like myself, who has sent 2 kids to college. I have a couple of grandsons. I have a future that I envision for them of a viable, healthy planet, and I just think people are ready for that kind of message, and I think that is really what is turning out voters. And I think the establishment has missed it in this election. They've just missed the messaging.
Yeah, I totally agree, because it's not in their heart, it's not in their DNA. Whereas you've been doing it for decades, and I saw you went to Standing Rock. You've been with Black Lives Matter activists, and you lived it. You don't. That's the problem with a lot of politicians. They got to fake it, right? You don't have to fake it. You lived it.
I don't have to explain. Like, I've done the work, my internal work, to understand where my privilege exists and when I have it, and where other people don't. And I'm not sure that the establishment Democrats, for all the hope that we have that they're for the working class and for the people in our culture that often find themselves on the outside, I'm not sure that they've really done the work to understand what that means and to actually live it. And being a part of the LGBTQ community, that's something that I personally had to do. And then by doing that in my own life, it helped me understand how to do that in response to other stories and other people's stories. I was at an event recently where I was sitting next to a college student, a young African American student. And I said, you know what? At my age, my story and what my truth is going to be different than what your story and your truth is. And that's why it's so incredibly important to be able to listen to each other. And for me, when I'm in a position of privilege, to set aside that privilege to recognize what someone else's life story is like, and to hear it, with intention.
Yes. Mighty Mary Wilson. It would be a.
I love the sound of that, I got to tell you.
Well, you've earned it, sister. You've earned
Thank
it.
You.
So I can't wait for the primary night when we find out if you pull that off. Then I can't wait for the general election night, and if I get to call you Mighty Congressman Mary Wilson.
I would love that, because it would show that we really have taken steps to change the way money functions in our country and the way money functions in politics. And money cannot be what drives our political process. It has to be the message. It has to be the experience that people bring to it. And it has to be the ability to care about one another in real and significant ways.
Yep. So if you're in the 21st District of Texas, let Mary represent you.
Thank you very much.
You just watched the video by the Young Turks, the home of the revolution. If you'd like to get the full show, come join us and become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.